What if the only way to survive a joyful world was to reject joy entirely? What if cruelty wasn't born from hatred, but from the quiet belief that happiness was never meant for you? The Grinch is often remembered as a cartoon villain, a green creature with a crooked smile and a heart 2 sizes too small. But beneath the rhyme and color lies something far more unsettling. The Grinch is not driven by greed. He isn't seeking power. He isn't trying to dominate others. He is trying to escape a world that reminds him, relentlessly, of what he lacks. This is the story of a man who didn't hate Christmas. He hated what Christmas represented. Welcome to Episode 12, the second chapter of Arc 3, The Winter Paradox, When Cold Hearts Shape Human Truths. If Episode 11 explored cold logic through Hans Gruber, a man who weaponized intelligence to outsmart a broken system, today we explore a different kind of cold. Not calculation, but emotional frost. This is the Grinch, a philosophy of resentment, isolation, and the fear of joy. This is Beyond the Villain, where we unmask evil, one story at a time. For this episode, I used the 1966 animated TV special version because it presents the Grinch as a symbol, not a gag character. It keeps his resentment abstract and universal. It avoids over-explaining trauma, which weakens philosophical tension. It treats transformation as moral choice, not comedic redemption. The 2000 film over-psychologizes him. The 2018 film softens him too early. The 1966 Grinch remains cold long enough for the philosophy to matter. Let's begin. The Grinch lives above Whoville, alone on Mount Crumpet. From his cave, he watches the town below celebrate Christmas with unrestrained joy, singing, sharing, laughing, embracing. To the Whos, Christmas is community. To the Grinch, it is noise. But the story never tells us that the Grinch was born evil. There is no speech about conquest, no manifesto, no desire for domination. There is only distance. The Grinch is not separated from Whoville by geography. He is separated by belonging. The 1966 special gives us very little backstory, and that is intentional. We are not told what hurt the Grinch, only that he was hurt enough to withdraw completely. This absence of explanation is philosophical, because resentment does not always come from one trauma. It comes from accumulation, small exclusions, quiet humiliations, repeated reminders that joy belongs to others. The Grinch lives alone because he has already decided connection is a threat. The turning point is not Christmas Eve. It is realization. The Grinch watches Whoville celebrate and concludes, "If I cannot participate in joy, then joy must be meaningless." And so, he crosses the line. Not to gain happiness, but to invalidate it. The Grinch's goal is not wealth. It is not power. It is not revenge. It is control over meaning. He wants to prove that Christmas is nothing more than lights noise. Presents food. Remove those, and joy collapses. If joy is fragile, then his isolation is justified. The Grinch does not see himself as cruel. He sees himself as honest. In his worldview, joy is shallow. Celebration is performative. Community is conditional. And if happiness depends on external things, then it deserves to be destroyed. This brings us to the core question. Is the Grinch evil, or is he a man who rejected joy before it could reject him? The Grinch embodies a philosophy rooted in resentment, alienation, and defensive nihilism. His worldview aligns closely with the ideas of philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, particularly the concept of ressentiment. 1. Ressentiment, the hatred of what one cannot have. Nietzsche described ressentiment as a psychological state where those who feel powerless redefine virtue to justify their suffering. Instead of saying, "I want what you have," they say, "What you have is worthless." This is the Grinch's philosophy. He cannot participate in communal joy, so he declares joy fake. He cannot belong, so belonging must be foolish. He cannot feel warmth, so warmth must be shallow. Christmas becomes his enemy not because it is evil, but because it exposes his exclusion. The Grinch doesn't hate happiness. He hates being reminded that happiness exists without him. 2. Isolation as self-preservation. The Grinch lives alone because solitude feels safer than vulnerability. Connection risks rejection. Celebration risks disappointment. By isolating himself, he gains control. No one can exclude him because he excludes first. This mirrors a very human coping mechanism. If I reject the world before it rejects me, I never have to feel the loss. 3. The logic of emotional coldness. Like Hans Gruber in episode 11, the Grinch uses logic, but of a different kind. Hans uses strategic logic. The Grinch uses emotional logic. Hans believed systems are corrupt. The Grinch believes joy is deceptive. Both conclude, the world lies, and I refuse to be fooled. But where Hans turns cold to dominate, the Grinch turns cold to survive. 4. The limitation of his philosophy. The flaw in the Grinch's worldview is simple. He mistakes absence of joy for proof that joy is false. But emotional truth does not work like logic. Joy does not disappear because one person lacks it. And by denying joy to others, he only deepens his own isolation. The counter-philosophy to the Grinch is communitarian ethics, the belief that meaning is created through shared experience. This is embodied by the Who's. They do not celebrate Christmas because it is perfect. They celebrate together. Even after the Grinch steals everything, they sing. Not out of denial, but out of connection. Their joy is not dependent on possessions. It is dependent on presence. This directly challenges the Grinch's assumption that happiness is fragile, that joy is performative, that celebration is shallow. Real-world parallel. We see this conflict everywhere. People who mock celebrations because they feel excluded. Individuals who dismiss optimism as ignorance. Cynicism used as armor against disappointment. The Grinch is not a fantasy villain. He is a psychological pattern. The Grinch teaches us something uncomfortable and necessary. 1. Resentment feels like wisdom. Cynicism often disguises itself as intelligence. It's all fake. It doesn't matter. They're pretending. But this mindset does not protect us. It isolates us. 2. Emotional withdrawal is a choice. The Grinch chose isolation to avoid pain. But avoidance also blocks healing. Connection always risks hurt, but without it, growth stops. 3. Joy is a practice, not a reward. The Who's don't wait for perfection. They choose togetherness despite loss. This is not naive. It is resilient. The lesson isn't be happy. The lesson is don't let bitterness become your identity. Was the Grinch truly evil, or a tragic product of prolonged isolation? His theft was cruel, but it was also a test. He wanted to know, if joy survives without its symbols, what does that say about my loneliness? The answer terrifies him. Because it means the problem was never Christmas. It was him. Philosophical expansion, existential choice. The Grinch reaches an existential crossroads. He can remain isolated and be right, or change and risk vulnerability. And for the first time, he chooses differently. We see versions of the Grinch in burned-out individuals who mock optimism, people who reject community after rejection, those who confuse emotional numbness with strength. The Grinch reminds us, coldness can feel powerful until it becomes unbearable. The Grinch is not dangerous because he hates joy. He is dangerous because his logic makes emotional sense. Isolation feels safer. Resentment feels honest. Cynicism feels intelligent. But none of it heals. Like the winter itself, emotional cold preserves nothing. It only freezes. And without warmth, nothing grows. The Grinch's transformation is not a miracle. It is a choice. To risk connection. To accept joy. To stop letting bitterness define him. So what do you think? Was the Grinch a villain, or a warning about what happens when resentment hardens into identity? Let me know in the comments. This is Beyond the Villain, where we unmask evil, one story at a time. See you on the next episode.